ways, drifting, a smile upon his face. There's no turning back, what's done is done. He's heading for the bright and shining sun.
News headlines with Juliette Gash.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon. A high-powered Dole committee has been asked to look into the €2.1 million tax settlement made by the independent TD Mick Wallace. The Taoiseach is insisting lessons have been learned after the Department of Finance's €3.6 billion accounting blunder. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the fiscal compact treaty will not be enough to save the euro. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton urges the Syrian president to step down after reports of another massacre by the Assad regime. And the British government's decided to boycott England's 3 group games at the Euro 2012 Championships, which are taking place in Ukraine, in response to the country's treatment of the jailed opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko. They're the headlines, Matt. We'll have news in full at 5.
Thank you very much, Juliette. 53102 is the number for your comments. We're going to start with Joan Blackburn of Met Éireann. Good evening to you, Joan.
Good evening, Matt.
How's the weather at the moment?
I think maybe the public could well answer that. It's poor everywhere and some very heavy falls of rain. We've had them today, and particularly so in Munster, and also we're going to be further very heavy falls of rain overnight. Rainfall amounts so far today, parts of South Leinster about 25 to 30 millimetres, parts of Munster 30 to 40, much of the rest of the country probably between about 15 and 20. You know, it's very heavy rain generally, but particularly so down through Munster.
When you say very heavy, and there's been talk about sort of like a month's supply of rainfall in the space of a couple of days, would that be accurate?
Well, in the space of a day, maybe even a month and a half rainfall in the space of a day, yeah. Rainfall totals for June generally, a lot of parts in the east of the country probably about 50 millimetres of rain, some parts of the southwest 70-ish. So yeah.
What's causing all this?
It's a low pressure, a little low to the south of Ireland, then it moves up into the Irish Sea, and basically the heaviest rain is expected, like the worst conditions, if you like, are expected to occur through West Munster, Connacht and parts of Ulster. And the reason for this is the front, as we call it, the band of rain gets stalled around the low in those areas, and that's where we're expecting the heaviest of the rain. It's really when you get a slow-moving front that you'll get really, really heavy downpours, and it's the same areas that get it.
How long more is this going to go on for, do you reckon?
Well, there will be a bit of an improvement in the southwest. It's going to be very heavy rain overnight is the main thing, and there is, people will want to take care because there is quite a considerable danger of flooding, particularly so in those areas that I mentioned through West Munster, Connacht and up to parts of Ulster. There's still be heavy rain elsewhere and a danger of localised flooding, but the worst affected areas being the west and northwest. Now, then during tomorrow, however, the southwest, there is going to be an improvement there during the morning time, so that's good news down there over parts of southwest Munster through Kerry, Cork and probably into Limerick. That improvement is going to take quite a while before it moves up over the country, so really it's wet in most places through the morning time tomorrow, and through a lot of the day tomorrow. It's probably only into tomorrow evening and tomorrow night that the rest of the country, except for Munster, improves. Munster should have better conditions as the day goes on tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Joan Blackburn of Met Éireann. Conor Faulkner of the AA. How are the roads coping with all this sudden deluge?
Yeah, well, it's pretty much exactly as Joan described. I mean, she was rattling off the areas of heavy rain, and those are the areas that we've had heavy traffic and reports of bad road conditions today. It was very poor in Cork earlier on. It seems a little better in Cork just as the day has progressed. There was some flooding earlier on that subsided. The worry in Cork at the moment, though, is that high tide is 8:40 p.m. this evening. So just a warning for people not to park on the quays, just in case. It may not flood, but obviously there are flood-prone areas down there, and at high tide this evening that might be worse, particularly if it keeps chucking it down with rain, and it has been doing, as Joan was saying, in many parts of the country. We also have some reports of local surface flooding in places like Longford, Athlone and in Tullamore. Seems to be particularly bad. But even when we're not reporting extensive surface flooding, there's an awful lot of surface water on the motorways. The M7, for example, and the N11 near Jack White's was reported to be very bad. And it's not that it's actually flooded, it's just that there's this big sheen of water and a very, very wet road surface. So what's happening on sort of like the motorways in the Midlands is there's an awful lot of road spray. So even if it's stopped falling from the sky, the visibility is very, very poor, and grip under your wheels is very poor.
And when you get so much water, so much rain falling at the one time, event, is that then, are the drains able to cope?
Well, they have done on this event so far. I mean, we did have the monster rain phenomenon in Dublin last year that people will recall when the drains were overwhelmed. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, there have been some spots of local flooding, and you can get that almost anywhere. Actually, there's some flooding reported from Athlone, and that could just be one locally blocked drain. But as a pattern, no, it doesn't seem to be as bad as previous weather events that we've experienced. But everywhere has taken a drenching, particularly in Munster. I guess if you draw a line across the country from sort of Dublin across to Sligo, at the moment it appears to be south of that point there's been an awful lot of water. And even if we don't have cars having to drive through, 6 inches or a foot of standing water, it's not quite that, but almost every road surface is badly drenched, and on the motorways in particular, the phenomenon of road spray really is worsening visibility, so you've got to slow down, particularly on those interurban motorways.
We've got Noel O'Keefe with us as well, Cork County Engineer, Director of Water Services. Noel, how well prepared are you for this type of rain, or can you be fully prepared?
Well, as fully prepared as we can be. We have 5 catchments here, and I was listening to what Connor and John Blackburn said, and I think the ones at risk for us would be the ones in West Cork, the Island and Skibbereen, Cleelga going into Clonakilty, and Bandon, obviously. And we're seeing, just to reinforce what Joan said, I looked at the rainfall from midnight to 4 o'clock this afternoon in Dunmanway, and we've had 44 millimetres of rain up there.
That's an enormous amount, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed.
And you had an enormous sort of shower of rain in East Cork and Middleton, Castlemartyr, Youghal area, didn't you, on Tuesday?
We did indeed. And, we had the same type of monster rain as happened in Dublin last year.
And how are you able to cope with it?
It fell a massive amount of rain, and we haven't quantified yet. We had brought our consultants from the OPW down to look at it. We're trying to quantify exactly how much rain fell in an hour and a half period, but we suspect something in the order of 50 millimetres fell at that stage, but we don't know exactly because it's very hard to predict. There's no rain gauge directly in the area where it fell, but it was so intense that it washed gravel, it washed every bit of debris, it washed wee bins and all their contents into the drains, and halfway through the rain event the drains got full of debris effectively.
And how big would the drains have to be able to cope with that sort of rain in such a short period of time?
I think Michael Phillips said that you'd nearly want them big enough to drive a bus through. You can't cope with everything. But it was literally the intensity of the rain. It stripped leaves off the trees.
Good luck in coping with it, given that it seems to be getting so much rain around the country. Thank you very much, Noel O'Keefe, from Cork County Engineer. Conor Faulkner of the A, thank you as well for joining us. Coming up in a couple of moments, Peter Bogdanovich, the very famous film director, is going to be joining us. And after 5 o'clock, give us your views on Mick Wallace to 53102. There he was, sitting in the Sugar Club with us yesterday, telling us all about never missing World Cup finals, driving off to Poland tomorrow to support the Irish soccer team. And we didn't know divil a bit about what was going on with his taxes until it turned up in the Irish Times this morning. We'll be discussing that after 5. Let us know to 53102 what you think. Traffic now at Estrom or Donegal.
Today FM Traffic and Travel with donedeal.ie, Ireland's largest classified ads website. Have you done deal yet?
Thank you, Matt. As I'm sure you are very aware that road conditions are extremely wet in most parts of the country this afternoon, making for hazardous driving conditions, so make sure you take a bit of extra care when making your route home this evening. In Wicklow then, patches of fog have been reported on the N11 Dublin Wexford Road at Newtown and Kennedy and also at Arklow. Please use your fog lights when needed, but of course switch them off when no longer necessary. In Longford then, there's excess surface water on the Ballymahan Longford Road and also on the Athlone Road approaching Longford Town, so make sure you increase your braking distance and reduce your speed. And elsewhere in Longford, Guardian in the process of clearing a collision on Park Road in Longford Town near the Greyhound Stadium. Moving then to Offaly, there's flooding on Dangan Road in Tullamore, and then the N62 for Athlone Road has reopened between Galross Cross and Derrin Loch following a serious collision earlier. Finally then in Dublin, usual delays on the N7 Naas Road outbound, and